in New York. Now, do you think this is a cyber crime against 12 individuals in the world? Or are you looking at this as an attack on the banking system, which can be compromised and 40,000 fraudulent transactions could take place world over in 27. In fact, this is a kind of terrorism. It terrorizes people like us who have got our money in the bank. I have got a card, bank has issued me a card, I am just keeping it in my locker, but I don't know, tomorrow that money may be drawn out of that card, then I have to start fighting with this banker saying that I am not responsible for this. But he will say, no, no, your card has been used. You ask the bank to give a technical statement, they say transaction successful. Okay, this is what these bankers get from one bank, that is an ATM. Transaction is successful, that is why money has been drawn. I don't need a bank to justify this. This was the reply given by Canara Bank in Bangalore in one of the banking ombudsman cases, where an ATM person had lost 40,000 rupees. And the bank says, puts up one sheet of paper, like you get out of the ATM, you can unsign some computer printout, and say, you see here, my computer says transaction successful, therefore you are responsible. See, this is the kind of cyber crime which has happened even in this 250 crores. But what has happened? A coordinated approach. How could in 27 different countries, people could coordinate an attack which involved going to an ATM, drawing the cash, putting it in his bag, going to the next ATM, again drawing the cash, so that whatever limits were there, whatever cash was there in the ATM was the limit. In fact, in this particular case, if you know, the ATM card limit was made unlimited. But each ATM had limited cash. So these people went to an ATM, withdrew as much was there in that ATM, then ran to the next ATM, and if 3,000 transactions have to be done in, say, 2 hours, you know how many ATMs they should have run. Now, this is where a cyber crime, in a way, elevates into a global cyber terrorism, or it's a war in a way against the economic system. So, this is what I call hybrid nature. Now, when you talk of security, now are you talking of security at the individual level, saying that create awareness amongst the credit card holders that they have to secure the information? In this particular case, the hacking had happened at the back-end systems. 2 Indian BPOs were involved, one in Pune, another in Bangalore. They did not secure their system. These hackers went into this system, got hold of some information, and with that, only 12 cards information they stole, but it was sufficient to have 250 crores. You can imagine that if they had got some 5,000, 10,000 numbers, I don't know what would have happened. Maybe, say December, they made 5 million transaction, 3,600. It was a pilot project. So now in March, it was slightly higher than this thing, 36,000. Now we don't know, they may be preparing themselves for another 3 million transactions in one single day. Because we have not done anything so far. As she pointed out, from December to March, we did not take any security action. From March to May, have we taken any security action? No. CERT-In has given a statement that we will conduct an inspection. Where have they conducted inspection? And what is that they have done so far? Nobody has done. We will all keep quiet until one more thing hits. This is the threat which we are having. The threat of complacency which pervades our corporate entities. Now you tell me, the same 2 BPOs who have caused this, they are also providing banking service to Indian banks, State Bank of India and other banks. Now what is the guarantee that this will not hit me if I have got an account in State Bank of India? We should all be worried about it now. But last year there was one ATM fraud in Bangalore, one security specialist, he surveyed some ATMs, he found 7, Canara Bank doesn't have an ATM where there is a guard or something. So he surveyed that, installed his equipments, and he stole about 4 crores or something like that. Now since then, has any bank introduced a proper CCTV system? Have they introduced any guard? No, they have not done, because they know that the client can always be bullied. When the customer goes, they say, your ATM card has been misused, how do you think bank will be held responsible? Now nobody seems to understand security can be breached, not necessarily at the end point, but in the back end. And the responsibility for security is more for the back end managers because they are making commercial money out of this business. Whereas I am only a user of the facility. The other recent shock which we in India had was the revelation made by a Norwegian firm which said one of the largest information security training companies in India called Apple is having its name stamped in a malware which is circulating in the world. A virus created and signed in the name of Apple. Of course, Apple may say that I was not responsible, somebody else has impersonated, put my name, yes, agreed. But the fact is that this company runs franchises all over India. And what are these franchises do? They conduct information security training for whom? Ethical hacking training. The word ethical hacking training means I am going to train people how to hack. But I call it as ethical hacking because I tell that person this is done only for security testing. Fine. You tell an youngster, okay, who is 20 years old and his mind is still not mature, teach him how to say steal 100 crores of rupees and then expect him not to use this technology for stealing. Okay, then we are living in a fool's paradise. Okay, so now we have to ask the question, what regulations you have in this country to regulate this ethical hacking training? Should we not regulate it? Is it possible for anybody and everybody to teach how to use bombs or how to make bombs and use in India? There has to be regulation. You have to teach it to the policemen perhaps, to the intelligence men perhaps. Raw people have to be told what is to be done, but not to the general public. And if you want to train a cyber army, then there has to be a system for that cyber army. Now, when we talk of cyber security, these are the policy issues which we need to look at. Now, the lack of those policy issues are evident in these incidents, and the more we remain silent, we will be waiting for greater disasters to happen. So when we look at this background and look at what should be our security goal, obviously the most optimal security goal is prevent a security breach. Let us say nothing happens. And how we want to do it? Spread security knowledge and build security culture. See, spreading awareness is different from building a culture of security. Every one of the individuals should be able to appreciate the need for culture, that security culture. This is a technical issue and a human relations issue. You can have the best of the antivirus software, but the person may not update. You give a password and say most complicated password, the person may write it and paste it on his computer. This is a sort of a human issue. Why do people do this? That is human nature. Now you have to understand. See, you tell people betting in India is not allowed, but people still do betting. Is that not? Now if there is an IPLbet.com and which is taking bet, even now you can see if you are in the internet, they will be taking bets for tomorrow's match. Now, our security people don't want to stop that IPLbet.com. How do you expect individuals? In fact, it has also got photographs of Indians who have been winners of the last few weeks or something like that. And what is the kind of motivation which we are giving there? So that is a security failure. Don't blame the end user or something like that. What is that all of us are doing? In fact, I put this up on my site for last 2 days. I think it is there on my site. By this time, somebody should have blocked that website. If it was a 66A offense against a prime minister or somebody, immediately they would have blocked Facebook. In fact, Mr. Gurnath Mayappan has already made changes in his Twitter. Just like his status he has changed. But this IPLbet.com is still remaining. I don't understand how IPLbet.com can remain there. This is where we are failing. Okay, it's a technical issue. There's a human issue. And the second one is, we have to fortify intelligence gathering. Of course, prevention is easier said than done. You should have the intelligence. Again, this is a technical issue. We are talking of surveillance. Surveillance is bad. But IPL betting would not have come out if surveillance had not been there. Maybe surveillance was there for a different purpose. Somebody understood that this has got this link. So ultimately, law enforcement people doing a surveillance in a state like India, where terrorism is a threat, I am not able to confidently say government should not have surveillance powers. Okay, they will have. What we are arguing is, where are the checks and balances? How can we prevent that misuse? Somebody wants to collect information for terrorism but passes it on to the political masters to gain the election advantage. That is what we want to prevent, but this is a technology issue. The third, and perhaps what is relevant for us, is the legal and policy issue of how to build deterrence through a better law and quick prosecution. I have been one of the persons that we have law. From 2000 we have got some law. Information Technology Act 2000 itself was there. Now ITA 2008 is there, very strong. But we have not been able to implement. Take for example Karnataka. First cybercrime police station in India in the year 2000. Now we are in 2013. How many prosecutions have taken place in the state of Karnataka? Anybody who is aware? Under Information Technology Act, either 2000 or 2008, has there been any conviction? How much of money government has spent for the cybercrime police station? The number of convictions is zero. Virtually zero. Okay, why virtually? Factually zero. It is okay. It is zero. Okay. Tamil Nadu, of course, had Suhaskarti case. Okay. One or two credit card cases have all been filed. No prosecutions. What we have to make a distinction between Suhaskarti case and others is that has been prosecuted, whereas there are many other cases. Even in Karnataka, 500 to 600 cases are there. Nothing has been prosecuted. Now, where do you find the blame? Can you find blame in ITA 2000 or 2008? What is there also is not being implemented, and what is being implemented is section 66A, Facebook like. I click and somebody raises an issue. 66A is not meant for publishing. It is not meant for Facebook. The law is not meant for this, but it has been applied and people have been sent to jail. So it is wrong interpretation. So what we need today in the information security area is a holistic approach. Of course, I developed this concept more as a theory of information security motivation within a corporate circle. But I think it is also relevant for the national segment. We need to create awareness, because without awareness nothing will move. But we need to create acceptance. That is the culture. Third is we have to make available the tools of security. But what supports the security system is mandating through law and carrot and stick approach kind of a thing. Carrots in terms of inspiration, incentives. That approach at the national level it is required. It is a holistic view. It is not one single kind of an operation. Now the present thinking is there is an apex authority being thought of called National Cyber Security Coordination Center. Dr. Gulshan Roy, who was hitherto the Director General of CERT-In, has been appointed as this coordinator, and hope that will be the focus. But role and functions of this is yet to be defined. And how different it will be from INSERT. Of course, in 2000, this was called CERT-In. In 2008 amendments, it became Indian CERT. Okay. There was, of course, a reason. One was the department, one was the legal entity. But CERT-In today has got a statutory recognition as a national nodal agency under Section 70A of Information Technology Act. Now, National Cyber Security Coordination Center, as of now, does not have statutory responsibility. Now it has to deal with other agencies like your NTRO, CBI, etc. And we need to define. Otherwise, remember there was an organization called SETS. I don't think anybody will remember. SETS was proposed by Dr. Abdul Kalam as Society for Electronic Transaction Security. Way back 98, 2000, 99, 2000. It was one of the first major ventures. And of course it went to Tamil Nadu. Because Jayalalitha at that time gave some land, etc. to that, otherwise it would have come to Bangalore. But where is SETS today? Nobody remembers. It remains as a research organization. Maybe I call it as a white elephant type. Nobody knows what it is doing, but government is spending a lot of money. I don't know, National Cyber Security Coordination Committee may also end up as a white elephant just to give a post-retirement position for Dr. Bhushan Rai. And it may not go beyond that. Okay, fine. Now, what is the technology situation? Okay, technology situation, technology people, Infosys or anybody, you say, ask them, they are very proud to say that there are bugs, there will be bugs in our system. You have to manage as a user. Vulnerabilities in the software is taken as something which is a in thing. Now I don't understand, we are all using Windows. Every week, every Tuesday the vulnerabilities are being addressed. Does it mean that if year after year, Microsoft has not been able to break those vulnerabilities? There is something very seriously wrong. They have to rework the whole system from zero and try to work out something. Otherwise, you are putting the end citizen at risk. Why it is happening? Commercial greed that puts revenue ahead of security. I think I charge all IT companies on this. That is why advanced persistent threats, intelligent viruses, man in the browser attack, etc., they proliferate. So on technologies front, we are again failing. Legal infrastructure, I'll give you one example. ITA 2008, I'm quite happy with what it is. Okay. Now, judiciary has to implement it. Now, what is the status of judiciary in India? Cyber Appellate Tribunal closed. Why? Government wants somebody to be appointed there, and judiciary doesn't want to agree with that. Like our Karnataka Lokayukta, the Cyber Appellate Tribunal is waiting for last 2 years. In Karnataka particularly, we have now a very peculiar situation. See, if any of these hackers of this ATM are in Karnataka, can you imagine, Information Technology Act is not applicable to them. There is a temporary judicial rule in Karnataka that if anybody hacks into a corporate computer, you cannot charge him under Section 66 of Information Technology Act. Do you agree? Because somebody got an intelligent interpretation that the word person used in Section 43 applies only to an individual, not to a company. Therefore, neither a company can be charged against under Section 43, nor a company can comply under Section 43. 43 is linked to Section 66, therefore no offence under Section 66 can be committed by a company or against a company. This happened in Karnataka on 27th December 2011. It took me 1.5 years to convince State Human Rights Commission that this is wrong, something has to be done. Now State Human Rights Commission wanted an explanation from the government agreed, and a review of this was made. Now I am stuck with the highest court of this country, this land, Karnataka High Court, who has given a temporary confirmation that yes, person may be only the individual. Now we need to see, on Monday there is a hearing by a full bench whether Karnataka High Court will see what decision they are giving. If they continue this, then I need some lawyer's assistance here, because I may be hauled up for contempt of court, because I am definitely going to some way criticize the Karnataka High Court also. Now what it means is that there is a lack of even putting existing policies in place. If this is so, then how do you blame the police for not registering FIRs? If judges cannot understand what is the law, how can you expect a constable to understand? Definitely he will make mistakes either in Section 66A or in any other case. Now, in terms of manpower skills, this is what I already made a recent listing, that INSERT has made a public statement that we need 4.7 lakh cyber security specialists in the country in the next few years. Fine. Now, who is going to create this? Now, this is where we, in the education institutions, have to see. Engineering colleges and private sector training colleges will come, but the concern is, are they going to create responsible cyber security professionals, or they are going to create rogue elements? Remember, one of the persons who had ethical hacking training in a company called E2 Labs in Hyderabad was caught in a terrorist attack, Bombay terrorist attack, sending out emails. So So these people, you train them, a portion of them, not all, even if 5%, 1% of these 4.7 lakh people who are trained become terrorists, you can imagine where we are ending up. Now we come to solution. I personally feel it is the citizens who have to take control. Don't trust any other organization, including the government. Government will act if you push them only, otherwise, no. There has to be an initiative which I have termed as Netizens Protection Commission or something like that. I'm happy that Karnataka Human Rights Commission has assumed netizens also as citizens, fine. But how long it will go, I do not know. I need a separate Netizen Protection Commission. While the government thinks about it, we the people have to look at a Netizen Protection Forum. We will start a lobby or something like that. And if organizations like National Law School is interested in finding a solution to national cyber security, you have to start doing something like that. This sort of a debate has to be a catalyst for that. Can we start a forum of national security starting from National Law School, from this Law and Technology Forum? This is what I would like as the thought to do that. Thank you.
Through our heads already. And again, to me, the thing that sort of stood out the most was the fact that you have at one end a situation where there's almost, no awareness. Police, if I'm not mistaken, who started something called the Social Media Lab right now, and they're training people to use social media so that you can conduct surveillance. Like, it's interesting to me that people have to be trained in social media, and that you can in turn use that for something else. But then you have that at one extreme, and then at the other extreme you have people with a lot of access to a lot of knowledge, specialized knowledge and specialized information. And these are people who are being called ethical hackers, and then the lines are getting blurred everywhere. So I think it's a slightly messy situation that we're in right now. But as Mr. Navi suggested, maybe law schools and I suppose other technical institutions with people who are actually interested in seeing this through, maybe this is the place where people can start looking for answers, looking for ways to sort of solve these things. Another very interesting thing that scared me was all his descriptions about the ATM cases. And it got me thinking that we put out a lot of information into the public realm, onto the internet. Something as simple as your birth date being available is a very private, personal bit of information that you've let a lot of people know about. And I think it's in connection to that it's important for us to understand the weaknesses in the systems that we sort of take for granted. The fact that when you assume that your information is protected in, say, a banking institution or a different financial institution, or again with the Aadhaar card or any other DNA profiling establishment, I think it's important for us to first understand the weaknesses. And in that sense, I think Dr. Kelkar is going to give us a lot of insight into that. So, yes.
I'm now technologist. I'm working in the field of security. And I come from the times when there was actually no security. I used the internet in the 90s in the US where I was studying, and nobody ever bothered about security. At the same time, there was a sense of freedom in using the internet and exploring it. I remember in 1988, there was a Cornell graduate student who first invented the first worm on Unix. Actually, he found a vulnerability in Unix. And his father actually was working for National Security Agency in the US. And this guy was a very smart guy. And he made a worm, and that time the internet consisted of only the universities, about 100 or 200 of them. And he tested the worm on the university network, and he didn't have any malicious intentions. It was more of an experiment. But there was a timer that he had put in the worm, and since he hadn't done a production testing, something went wrong, and the worm started propagating faster than what he had anticipated, and the whole university network was clogged. It was big news. This was actually the beginning of the field of hacking. He was penalized $10,000, and I think he dropped out of Cornell or something like that. but academicians and those who are working in the field of technology kind of admired the smartness involved in finding the vulnerability in Unix. It was an excellent piece of research, and so I come from that background, so anything to do with, oh, ban this training and ban that training, I'm totally against it. I'm also very vehemently for free speech, and I'm also against any form of censorship. We live in a democratic country, and I'm against surveillance. In 2005, when I come from Goa actually, in 2005, Congress government came to power in Goa, defeating BJP, and I gave a talk in Goa about IT in general and how Goa should move up in IT. And there was this IT minister who was so impressed with my talk. He actually happened to be a vice president of BCCI, one of the most corrupt guys. Okay, and he appointed me to a directorship of Infotech Corporation of Goa. And the first time I went to meet him, actually I wasn't sure whether I should take it, but then I thought, let me just try it and see, and be very, very alert on what's going to happen. So first time I went to meet to his house, he said, hey Samir, you can come here, stay in a 5-star, meaning I was like a non-executive director, I was supposed to be just attending board meetings. You can build whatever you want and just enjoy yourself and go back. I said, I'm from Goa, I don't need to stay in a 5-star, just pay my ad fare. So the